Imagine this. You're sitting at the family dinner table. The food smells amazing. Everyone is smiling and laughing like it's just another normal night. Then your sister walks in holding hands with her new boyfriend. She's glowing, showing him off like he's the prize she finally won. But for some reason, every single person at that table keeps staring at you. Not at her. Not at him. At you. Like you're the one who doesn't belong. That's exactly what happened to me. My name is Alex. I'm 28 years old. I've always been the quiet one in the family. The responsible one. The one who showed up when things got hard. While my older sister Grace chased her big dreams and my parents bragged about every little thing she did, I was the one quietly taking care of what needed to be done. I worked long hours in a job that actually helped people every single day. It wasn't flashy. It didn't come with fancy titles or big paychecks that made people clap. But it mattered. At least to me it did. That Friday evening, Mom had gone all out. The dining table looked beautiful with the good china and fresh flowers in the middle. Dad was already pouring drinks and telling his usual jokes. My aunt and uncle were there too, along with a couple of cousins. The room felt warm and loud with conversation. Then the front door opened and in walked Grace. She looked stunning as always, hair perfectly done, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. And beside her was Ryan. Tall, confident, with a warm smile and kind eyes. He shook hands with everyone politely. "Nice to meet you all," he said in a steady voice. "Grace has told me so much about her amazing family." Everyone greeted him with big smiles. Mom hugged him like he was already part of the family. Dad clapped him on the back. Grace kept touching his arm, laughing at everything he said. But when Ryan's eyes landed on me across the table, something felt different. He held my gaze just a second longer than normal. And then the staring started. Mom glanced at me. Then Dad. Even my aunt, who usually barely noticed me, kept looking my way with this strange expression. It wasn't friendly. It felt like they were all waiting for something bad to happen. Like I was about to ruin the perfect night. I felt my stomach twist a little, but I smiled back anyway. I had learned years ago that showing how much their words hurt only gave them more power. So I sat there, hands in my lap, trying to enjoy the food even though my appetite was fading fast. The conversation flowed nicely at first. Ryan seemed genuinely nice. He asked Dad about his golf game. He complimented Mom on the cooking. Grace kept steering the talk toward all the exciting things she was doing at her marketing job, the big clients, the trips, the promotions. Everyone nodded and praised her like they always did. Then Ryan turned toward me. His voice was polite, curious. "So Alex, Grace mentioned you're really dedicated to your work. What do you do exactly?" The room went still for half a second. Before I could even open my mouth to answer, Mom jumped in sharply. "Oh honey, let's not go there tonight. Some things are better left unsaid at the dinner table." A few awkward laughs rippled around the table. Grace leaned forward with that familiar smirk on her face. "Yeah, maybe you should skip the details this time, Alex. Or, make something up so you don't sound so. She didn't say the word pathetic, but everyone heard it anyway. Dad chuckled and shook his head. "Come on now, let's keep things light. Ryan doesn't need to hear about all that." My face burned hot. I could feel the heat rising up my neck. I had heard versions of this my whole life. The way they downplayed what I did. The way they made me feel small so Grace could shine brighter. But this time it stung deeper because it was happening right in front of someone new. Someone who was looking at me with real interest, not judgment. Ryan didn't laugh with them. He just kept watching me quietly, like he was trying to figure something out. The staring from the rest of the family grew heavier now. It wasn't random anymore. They were silently warning me not to embarrass them. I took a slow breath and kept my voice calm. "It's okay. I work at the local care center. We help elderly people and those who can't take care of themselves anymore. Some days it's helping them eat, some days it's just sitting with them so they don't feel alone. It's not glamorous, but it feels good to know I made someone's day a little easier." Silence. Then Grace let out a short laugh. "See? That's what I meant. Anyway, Ryan, tell them about that big project you closed last month. It's so impressive." The conversation quickly moved on, but the air felt thicker. I kept eating, but the food tasted like nothing. Inside, something was shifting. The old hurt was mixing with a new kind of anger. Not the loud kind that makes you yell. The quiet kind that makes you think. After dinner, while everyone moved to the living room for coffee, I stepped outside for some fresh air. The night was cool. I stood on the back porch staring at the stars, replaying the moment over and over. Why did they always do this? Why was my job something to hide? Why did Grace need to make me feel small every single time she brought someone new around? I thought about all the times I had been there for them. When Mom was sick a few years ago, I was the one who took time off work to drive her to appointments and stay with her at night. When Dad's business had a rough patch, I helped with the bills without ever asking to be paid back. When Grace needed a place to crash after one of her breakups, my small apartment was always open. But none of that seemed to count. Not when it came to impressing outsiders. Ryan stepped outside a few minutes later. He stood beside me, hands in his pockets. "Hey, I hope I didn't cause any awkwardness back there," he said gently. "I was just curious. You seem like someone who really cares about what you do." I shrugged. "It's fine. They've always been like that about my job. It's not exciting enough for family conversations." He nodded slowly. "I get it. My mom worked in healthcare too. She used to say the most important jobs are the ones no one wants to talk about at parties." He paused. "You handled that well though. Most people would have snapped." I smiled a little. Snapping never changes anything in this family. They just find new ways to push you down. We talked for a few more minutes. Ryan was easy to talk to. He asked real questions and actually listened to the answers. For the first time that night, I didn't feel invisible. When we went back inside, the staring continued. Grace kept giving me side glances like I had done something wrong just by existing. Mom pulled me aside in the kitchen later and whispered, "Alex, please don't make this about you tonight. Grace really likes this one. Let's not ruin it with your usual stories." "Usual stories?" I asked quietly. "You mean the truth?" She waved her hand. "You know what I mean. Keep it light." That was the moment something inside me clicked. I had spent years swallowing my feelings to keep the peace. Years of being the background character in my own family. Tonight, the weight of all those moments felt too heavy to carry anymore. I didn't say anything then. I just nodded and went back to the living room. But in my head, a plan started forming. Not loud revenge with shouting or drama. Something quieter. Something that would let the truth do the talking. The next few days I thought about it a lot. I remembered how Ryan had mentioned his mom worked in healthcare. I decided to look up a few things. Nothing creepy, just enough to understand who he really was. Turns out Ryan wasn't just any consultant. His company worked with hospitals and care facilities to improve services for elderly patients. He had even written articles about the importance of compassionate caregiving. Interesting. I didn't rush anything. I waited. A week later, Grace invited the whole family to a nice restaurant to celebrate her and Ryan's 1-month anniversary or something like that. She wanted to show him off again in a fancier setting. Mom called me 3 times to make sure I was coming and to remind me not to bring up work stuff. I smiled on the phone and said I wouldn't. When the night arrived, I dressed nicely. Simple button-up shirt, neat hair. I arrived on time and sat quietly while everyone ordered expensive drinks and appetizers. Grace was in full performance mode, laughing loudly and telling stories about their romantic dates. Ryan smiled along, but I noticed he kept glancing at me. Halfway through the main course, the conversation turned to careers again. Dad asked Ryan about his latest deal. Ryan answered politely, then looked across the table at me. "Alex, last time we didn't really get to finish that conversation. You help people at a care center, right? What's one thing you're most proud of in your work?" The table went quiet again. Mom's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Grace shot me a warning look. This time I didn't wait for anyone to cut me off. I spoke calmly, clearly. "Actually, last month we had a patient named Mrs. Thompson. She hadn't spoken much in weeks because she was so lonely. Her family rarely visited. I started sitting with her every afternoon, reading her favorite books out loud. One day she grabbed my hand and said thank you. That was the first time she had spoken in a month. A few weeks later, her daughter showed up crying because her mom had told her how much those afternoons meant. The daughter started visiting more. Now they're closer than they've been in years. The table stayed silent. But this time the silence felt different. Ryan leaned forward. Mrs. Thompson, was that at Willow Care Center? I nodded. Yes. His eyes widened slightly. My company just partnered with Willow Care last quarter. We're rolling out new programs based on feedback from staff like you. One of the case studies mentioned a caregiver who turned things around for a patient who had stopped communicating. They didn't give the name, but, was that you? I shrugged modestly. I was just doing my job. Grace laughed nervously. Okay, that's sweet and all, but Ryan, tell them about the time you met that famous CEO. Ryan held up his hand gently, still looking at me. No, wait. Alex, the feedback from Willow Care said that caregivers' approach helped reduce readmission rates and improved family involvement scores dramatically. My team has been using that as a model for other facilities. That's incredible work. Mom shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Dad cleared his throat. Grace's perfect smile started to crack. I kept my voice even. It's not just me. A lot of us at the center do this every day. We see people at their most vulnerable. Families who are too busy or too embarrassed to show up. We fill in the gaps. Sometimes all it takes is someone who shows up consistently. Ryan nodded slowly. My mom did the same thing for 30 years. She always said the real heroes never get the spotlight. They just make sure no one falls through the cracks. He turned to Grace. You never mentioned how important Alex's work is. This is exactly the kind of impact my company is trying to scale. Grace's face flushed. She forced a laugh. Well, it's nice, but it's not exactly, corporate level. Ryan looked at her for a long moment. Then he looked around the table at everyone who had been staring at me, trying to silence me, trying to make me disappear. Actually, he said quietly, it might be more important than a lot of corporate jobs. Because it changes real lives. Not just spreadsheets. The silence that followed was thick enough to cut with a knife. Mom stared at her plate. Dad fiddled with his glass. My aunt looked embarrassed. Grace's cheeks were bright red. I didn't gloat. I didn't say I told you so. I simply took a sip of water and let the truth sit there. Later that evening, as people were leaving the restaurant, Ryan pulled me aside for a moment. I'm sorry if I made things awkward again, he said. But I meant what I said. Your work matters. A lot. If you ever want to talk about ways to bring more recognition to caregivers like you, my company has programs for that. I smiled. Thanks. I appreciate it. Grace barely spoke to me as we said goodbye. Mom gave me a tight hug that felt more like a warning than affection. We'll talk later, she whispered, but we didn't need to talk. The next few weeks told the story. Grace and Ryan's relationship cooled off noticeably. She posted less about him. Family group chats became quieter. Mom called me one afternoon, voice softer than usual. Alex, I've been thinking about what happened at dinner. Maybe we haven't always been fair about your job. I listened without interrupting. Dad even texted me asking if I needed any help with anything at the care center. Small things, but they were new. The biggest change was inside me. I stopped shrinking when they made comments. I started speaking up about my days at work without apology. And slowly, the family started listening. Not perfectly. Not overnight. But the dynamic shifted. One evening a couple of months later, we had another family dinner. This time Ryan wasn't there. He and Grace had decided to take a break. But the atmosphere felt different. When Mom asked how my week went, I told them about a new patient who reminded me of Mrs. Thompson. No one cut me off. No one laughed. Grace even asked a follow-up question. I realized then that the best revenge isn't loud or cruel. It's living your truth so clearly that other people can't ignore it anymore. It's refusing to hide who you are just to make others comfortable. That night at the first dinner, when everyone kept staring at me, they weren't really seeing me. They were seeing the version of me they had created in their heads, the small, embarrassing sibling who didn't measure up. But when the truth came out, when Ryan connected the dots, That version shattered. I didn't destroy anyone. I didn't need to. I simply stopped letting them define my worth. And in the end, that quiet strength spoke louder than any argument ever could. If you've ever sat at a family table feeling invisible or undervalued, if you've ever been made to feel small so someone else could shine brighter, I want you to know this. Your worth isn't decided by their opinions. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is keep showing up as your real self, doing work that matters even when no one claps. The stares might come. The cutting comments might follow. But stay calm. Stay kind. Let your actions and your truth do the talking, because one day, someone at that table or someone new will see you clearly. And when they do, everything changes, not with shouting, not with revenge that leaves scars, but with the simple, unstoppable power of living a life that speaks for itself. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched something in you, if you've been through similar family moments, share in the comments what you would have done. Did you stay quiet? Did you speak up? Or did you walk away and build something better? Remember, you don't have to be loud to be strong. Sometimes the quietest voices carry the most weight in the end.